Hi, this is Bobby with Grub Mud Concrete. Today we're working out in Avon, Indiana, where we're pouring this sidewalk. It's part 2 of the video I posted last week. And if you like these videos about doing concrete, guys, I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If we get some more interaction, it'll help grow our channel. Also, if you would hit that like button, and if you see something you don't like, or you do like, or if you do something differently, post a comment about it. I definitely will respond to every single comment. So since this job was so small, we just elected to wheelbarrow it. We did bring the big wheelbarrow, the double wheelbarrow. I do recommend, if you're going to wheelbarrow, use one of these if you don't have too many turns or if it's not muddy. But yeah, they bring a lot of mud and they're actually pretty simple to wheel. So my dad wheeled this one. Here we are. You can see how creamy this mud is. This is from Cash Concrete. It's a 4,000 stone air mix. We don't use gravel mixes. We used to, but we started having pop outs. Like if you look over the driveway, there's pop outs on it. That's what a gravel mix will do. We don't use a pea gravel mix up here. It's not strong enough, but for even when we used to use like 50/50s and gravel mixes, it causes those pop outs. So stone is a jagged stone, number 8 stone, and it doesn't have as many pop outs. It's a stronger mix. And then we pour it on top of wire mesh and pull the wire mesh up. But so 4,000 stone air. But like I said, this mix, Cash Concrete mud, is so creamy. It's almost like you get a free 6-bag out of 4,000, and it's really, really strong mud. And we're pouring it at about a 4 slump right here, so I know it's really strong. The drier that you pour the concrete, the stronger it is for the most part. So yeah, I'm pulling up the wire mesh right here. It's very, 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 very important, along with the compacted subgrade. Then what I do is I come along it. Some people call it puddling. We call it come along it, get it close, and scrape out your wheelbarrows. And then when you get it close, after you pull up all your wire, what you'll do is you'll run a hand float on it and flatten it out, and then you'll pull a 2x4 down it. And then I'll repeat the process over and over again the whole way down the sidewalk. So yeah, here you can see the cream in this stuff. I mean, I love their mud. It's actually my favorite mud that we ever get. All right, so like I said, I float the top, and I float both sides, and then I'll run a 2x4 down it, and that's actually called striking off. And you want to get it floated right to the top of your board on both sides, but don't forget to pull your wire mesh up as you go. It's very important, especially when you're just a one-man person doing it. So you kind of got to pull it up a little bit high where there's no mud, and then when he dumps on it, it'll push it down, then you can walk it in the rest of the way. So yeah, when you're pulling this strike-off board across it, lean it back a little bit as you pull it towards you. It'll help set those rocks down and not pull as bad. I go back over that one more time to lay those rocks in a little bit. But yeah, so you come along it up to the top a little bit high, then you puddle it in with your float, or you can use your come along to puddle it in too. But you should always float your edges before you strike off. I see some guys not doing that, and I don't understand why, because it makes it low when you don't float before you strike it off. If you just start striking off on the side, your edge will be a little bit low, and you definitely don't want that on the top side. So I float my edges and I ride just a hair high on the top side. And this tool right here is called a Darby, or a big mag, and basically just it's a bigger float, so you can reach all the way across the sidewalk. Because after you strike it off, what you're going to want to do is you want to get it closed up as soon as possible, which means float it off, or bull float, or whatever. But this is so skinny you can't run a bull float on it. So what we brought was our Darby mag. So they make wooden Darbies too, but those are really for cold joints and stuff like that. This one's great for pouring out. This Darby is. Whenever I usually pour up against walls, I float with it, and then I go over it with my strike-off board. But anytime you can use a wider tool or a longer tool, it's going to get stuff more flat, but it's also probably going to be harder to use too. So not a lot of guys use Darbies, but I think they should. There's another concrete channel on here called Wyatt and Sons Concrete. I don't know where they're out of, but it's a guy on there named Mason. He's a younger guy. He's a mason, actually, and he uses a Darby too. So, you know, if he can do it, anybody can do it, because he's a mason, but he also is a concrete guy. They do a lot of concrete. But also, I wanted to give a shout out to Juan from Concrete, that Juan show. He just dropped a video of some stamped concrete and some cantilever steps, and it turned out really, really, really nice. And I just wanted to say good job, man. That was really sharp. So yeah, I'm just doing that process over and over again. I'll pull my inside stakes, and then I'll float it off each side. I pull my wire up, float it off each side, pull my strike off board back, and then Darby the top. This time my dad just happens to be Darby in it. So I float off my sides, pull my board over it, and then float it in. And what you'll do is you'll edge it afterwards. So when you pour concrete this dry, like a force lump, you're not going to have much time to work with it. So you got to keep that in mind. Either be a professional or pour it a little wetter, which this project really, I showed every step. This could be a DIY project, I guess. I don't really recommend it because it's tough. I mean, if you don't do it every single day, it's going to be hard. Plus, if you've just seen it done on a video, it's going to be hard. So I would definitely get somebody that knows what they're doing. You don't want to have to tear it out and then pay me to come in and pour it anyway. So yeah, usually on little jobs like this, the concrete companies have a minimum haul charge that you have to pay, a 4-yard minimum, or you have to pay a haul charge. Sometimes they have a truck charge on top of that. So therefore, like, we have to have a minimum too, and some people don't understand that. But then when I explain to them about how there's haul charges and you know, we always recommend wire mesh, and we always recommend sealer and everything. It just depends on if the customer wants to pay for that also, you know. So so, you know, I always recommend everything, that wire, fiber, sealer, and I also recommend saw cut joints. Not on a sidewalk like this, but on bigger pads, I like saw cut. I think it looks better, and I mean, I can cut straight joints, but I just like that little bitty thin 1/8 inch wide saw cut I got a Gorilla concrete saw, and it's badass. I've used some other ones like Medusa saw and some other ones, Skill saw and stuff like that. They don't cut it quite as crisp and clean as a Gorilla one I use, but I'm sure that they cut it straighter than a demo saw. So I definitely don't recommend saw cutting with the demo saw and a 2x4 or chalk line. I can cut it straight like that, but the saw blade's 1/8 inch wider. So if I want a saw cut, I'm gonna try to get it as narrow as possible. So I don't know. That's just how I like concrete. If it's at my house, I'm gonna saw cut it. If it's, you know, a sidewalk, I'll probably hand tool it unless everything else is saw cut. And I would just use that. That's the only time I would use my demo saws, to saw cut a sidewalk. So now we're ready to actually tool in our joints. Like I was just talking about, I had them laid out. I just didn't have the angles exactly straight. So what I do is I don't cut it. I just draw it like that at first, and I stand back and look at it, and then I cut it. Then I'll draw my next one, maybe even draw another one on it after that, and then I'll stand back and look at it, and then I'll cut them. You want to lay it out first before you just start chopping away, because you don't want to put one of these in the wrong spot. For one, you're not going to have a lot of extra time. You see how I drew those other two? You might have to rewind that clip a little bit, but you can see how I drew my next one, and I had even my next one drawn. I try to do that way they're evenly spaced, and they're at the right angles that they need to be. And nothing looks worse when you get a joint tool in the wrong spot, or the wrong shape, or crooked, or something like that. So if you're going to do these hand tools, you got to take your time and do them right. You see how I get right up to my edge. I don't make them look nasty on the edge either. Like, I've seen that done before. People lean on these boards way too hard and sink real bad, and you just got to be smart when you're hand tooling. It's just, you know, something extra you got to do in the middle of your finish process. This one actually goes on a pole, but I like it because it cuts really clean. So what you'll do is you'll float all your lines out, your edge line, your joint line, and it'll fill in some. So float it all out, then clean up your edges and your joint, run your tools back through one more time, and then float your lines out again, and then broom it. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it is a lot of work. That's why it's not for the faint of heart. Anybody can make it look decent, but to make them look as crispy and clean as this one turned out, you gotta hit it an extra time. I mean, that's all there is to it. Anybody can do it. It's an extra pass that you have to do it both. So, and then sometimes we'll broom through and then clean it up afterwards, and that's called retracing or picture framing. And it's a popular look here in Indiana, but on this one, I was just like, I want to broom it straight through. I think it would work better because it was for an older lady, and didn't want her slipping on any edge lines or anything. But there's everything. We just got to take out those joints. See how I cleaned out those joints, and there's still a couple lines on it? What we'll have to do is float that out. That one I think took, but here my dad floating out the joiner line. He just had to barely float it out. There wasn't much of a line at all. So once he gets that, then I'll broom through it again. And then after we get everything all broomed, we have to put a sealer on it. And we used an oil-based cure and seal on this one, which a lot of times we use water-based for anything that's not going to be sealed directly after the finish process. But if you're going to seal it directly after the finishing process, then I suggest using a oil-based sealer, solvent-based. But one thing I do need to note is sealers can discolor your concrete. You can have, especially if you don't seal it right away. If you wait, it's going to get discolored. That's what I was saying. If I don't get it sealed right away, I use a water base. But if I do seal it right, if I do want to seal it the same day, I like to use my oil base. That's how you blend a broom in right there. I would rather pull over it 3 times than push pull, because sometimes push and pull makes it too heavy of a broom. So you'll see me a lot of times just pull, and then pull again. I'd rather pull twice than push pull, but push and pull works too. It's just you got to time it right and know exactly what you're doing. Here's that cure and seal I put on. I put a really heavy coat on it. Finally got my concrete boots off. Got my sandals on for all you guys, the sandal police. I'm just kidding. Hey guys, stop what you're doing right now. Hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell if you want to. And then hit that like button. Leave me a comment. And then I'll respond to it and we'll talk through comment. Hey, check it out one more time. This is before. It almost looks like it has a step in the middle of it right there. And it's definitely leaning really bad. Especially from this angle, it looks like it has a step and almost 2 steps on it. So that's the before, and then this is the now. Again, guys, appreciate you watching. Smash that like button for me and leave me a comment, and we'll see you on the next one.